Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a long time coming. We talked about you coming on the podcast back when I spoke at your event. I don't even know when that was, last September, so almost a year ago.
It was a full year. Yeah.
But look, it's always divine timing, right? Like it is perfect time because your book is out today. Your second book
Today.
that you've written, which is super exciting. And I wanted to dive in. Like we got to hang out in DC last weekend, and I got to know a little bit more about you, even more than I knew before. And I was like, let's have you on the show. Let's do this thing. But why don't we start like, who is Nicole today? And then we'll break down how you got there.
It's so interesting because I was speaking at an event a couple weeks ago in Charlotte, and I was talking on manifestation, and I was talking about how it doesn't necessarily matter if you know how to get where you're going, that doesn't matter. Because if I would tell myself 10 years ago that I was speaking on manifestation in Charlotte, North Carolina, I would have been like rolling my eyes and not even believing it, because I'm somebody who is a recovering people pleaser. I'm somebody who worked my way out of a depression. I'm somebody who is a successful business owner. And all of those things have made me ridiculously obsessed with helping other people step back into their power.
I
Because I
love
don't
that.
ever want anybody to live a life that I was living if there's a way out.
Yeah. So what did, like, obviously take us back 10 years ago. Like you were like, I would be rolling my eyes and laughing and saying you're ridiculous. Like who was Nicole then? Because I don't know that Nicole. Like I only know the Nicole that you are now. So I'm curious on my own end of like who was that person and where did the transformation begin?
Yeah. So I got married when I was 19. I moved out when I was 17. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after I turned 20. And I was still going through school. I'm a mental health counselor, a master's level mental health counselor. And I found out I was pregnant, and that was a happy accident. It's on purpose. I see that in my life now. But at the time I was like, my parents had just gotten divorced, and me and my husband were financially independent, and we had this beautiful, lovely, adorable, perfect little baby. And I felt like I was drowning. I don't know if it was postpartum depression or if it was just circumstances, but we were so stupid broke. We couldn't keep the lights on. It was always a monthly game of like, what utility is most important.
Yeah. What
I
utility can we extend an extra 20 to 30 days so we can make sure, keep the lights on? I've been there.
And
I
it
played that
it
game.
was upstate New York too, so it was usually heat. We usually had to do the heat. But I was just in this area of my life where everything felt so deeply out of my control, and I felt like a victim to the universe. And I mean, I was going to school, I was interning, I was doing mental health counseling, and I was going home and could barely get out of bed. I was so depressed and I felt so helpless, and I had no support system. I mean, when your friends are all turning 21 and you're sitting there nursing a child, like that's not the vibe. That's
Yeah,
not what people are.
that's not they don't want to hang out with you. They want to go out to the bars.
Yeah, I was left out of a lot of things. And so it took a long time for me to get into a place where I was even curious about it, because everything felt so out of my control. So the word I would use to best describe me now would be powerful. The word of me 10 years ago was totally powerless.
Mm, I love that shift. And obviously, look, you went into mental health and counseling and all those things, master level, which is super impressive. So now you're like manifestation, spiritual readings, like all of these things. Like, I want to know, like, what was your beginning step into the spiritual space, and why do you feel like it was calling you so heavily?
I was feeling a little frustrated with traditional counseling. I felt like people knew what to do. They knew that they needed to think better thoughts. They knew that they could do certain coping skills and feel better, but they weren't doing them. But like there was just such a big gap in healing from knowing what to do and actually implementing it. And the people who made the most progress were the people who had some kind of spiritual connection. I grew up an atheist. I grew up somebody who had there was no conversation about religion in my life. The only interactions I had with God, spirit, anything, were people telling me I was going to hell because I didn't believe in that stuff. So I began to get curious about why the people who had faith were more likely to heal. Like, why were they able to implement it better, easier? So I kind of started to study just different types of religion. I was just curious. It was just out of a place of curiosity. But then something really crazy happened is I'm sitting with people one-on-one. And when you're one-on-one in a conversation with somebody, I know you know this because you sit with people all day and interview them, you get locked in where like the space-time continuum like no longer exists. Like an hour passes and you're like, where the hell did that hour go? And
Yeah.
when you're locked in with somebody and they're opening their heart and telling their deepest, darkest, soulful truths, there was a special moment where I started to realize I was picking up intuitively information about them that maybe they hadn't told me. And so I went to my supervisor at the time, who's Christy, a friend of ours, which is funny because you didn't know she was my boss. But
Yeah.
I went to
Yeah. I just
Christy at
learned
the
that this
time.
last weekend. I was like, really? Like, how do I not know this?
Yeah. And I was like, I'm losing my mind, I think. I literally was just like, I think something's wrong with me because, this happened with this client and this happened with this client. Like, why am I able to know things that they're not telling me or be so in the energy of it that I'm picking up or reading energy that I didn't know? So my style of doing anything is that I don't take anything blindly. I don't have people tell me what to do and just do it. I want to know more. So I actually went and trained with a psychic medium. And
Mm,
I started to learn everything there was to know about energy and intuition. So when I came back to the counseling energy, I could say, okay, I see what's happening here energetically as well as what's happening in your thoughts. And it sort of put me on this fast track where I wasn't addressing just one aspect of the healing. I was looking at the spiritual energy as well and people's intuition and how their intuition was always guiding them the whole time. It was just honing in on what that actually was.
yeah.
So I ended up starting a business with Christy. We kind of jumped ship after we learned that, man, energy is just as powerful and intuition is just as powerful as your thoughts and your mindset. So that's what I do now, right? As I combine all of these cool aspects of healing and teach people to really trust themselves, trust their gut, make decisions that are really in alignment, and also rework their mind because that's just as powerful too, but it does have an energetic component. So I like to interweave a lot of different aspects of healing, depending on the person, right? Because I want to meet people where they're at.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So what did Christy say to you when you went to her and you were like, I think I'm losing my mind?
She looked at me and said, "Oh my God, me too." She
Mm,
was having that same experience, but neither of us could put our finger on. And it's so funny because I talk to so many therapists now who are like, had this same experience when you're so locked in with somebody that you really pick up their energy. And this is sort of like, have you ever had like, your dad's really worked up about something and you feel really anxious and then he calls you and he's all worked up about something and you're like, I was feeling anxious before he even called, even though
yeah.
today's been perfectly fine. Energy is there, and the more in tune we are with people, the more we're able to feel that energy go back and forth. So yeah, she was on board. It just became a matter of like, we can't do this in a traditional mental health counseling setting and have it be authentic to the way we would like to do that. So
Sure.
we jumped
No, that
ship.
makes total sense. So let's talk about this a little bit, right? So first question is, do you believe everybody has the ability to tap into this intuition, this energy, this spiritual reach, however you want to word it? Do you think everybody has that ability? And if so, how can we at least be more aware of it and allow ourselves, because I think it's more of us blocking it than anything else, but like, how do we allow ourselves to just hear it, feel it, and most importantly, I think the part that I miss out on is like, how do I understand it better?
Yeah. Your soul's GPS is your intuition. That is your guidance system. I don't think any person is without it. Everybody has, no matter how logical somebody wants to be. I remember one of the first people I read energy for was Christy's dad. He is a private investigator. He is very stone faced and doesn't give anything away. And I just remember like kind of confirming the way he's so good at private investigating is because he feels called in a direction. So we are all able to and all have an intuition. Accessing it is a little tricky because a lot of us don't trust ourselves well enough to listen to the things we feel in our guts. And our intuition speaking to us in different ways. So some people have that gut response, and some people have that just knowing. That's for me. I have just a knowing. So everybody's intuition speaking them differently. And the longer we ignore it, it doesn't go away, but it gets a little quieter, or we're just so used to overriding it. So for someone like you, the best thing that you could do to start your intuition, well, two things. One, you can write down gut feelings. So I had like a note thing in my phone, because if you thought I just started being intuitive and trusted everything that came to me, you're on crack. Like that was not the case. I had to develop evidence. I am by nature a science-based girl. I had to develop evidence that this was true, real, and correct. And I have just still a list in my phone of gut feelings, knowings, things that happened that I just kind of had, in my gut, that happened consistently, that I was correct about consistently. I have proof and evidence that my intuition is accurate when I choose to listen to it. So I will say, keeping track to create some evidence for yourself, but also creating time alone. When we are going about our busyness of the world, it's so easy to get caught up in the external, and then you're kind of a product of your environment. When you take time to come within, whether that's meditation, whether that's spending time alone with your thoughts, I think Huberman Lab podcast calls it non-sleep deep rest.
Mhm.
So you can do things to quiet your mind and come within. And the more you come within, the more you start to hear it. So it can be easy. I like to make things easy. I don't think healing has to be as challenging as we like to believe it, or as long as we like to believe it has to be.
Yeah, well, I think that part of that's human nature, right? I think people like to sit in their shit and their BS, and they enjoy being sad, even though they claim that that's the thing that's leading to all the bad stuff in their life. Like, they like that part. And so I would think from just a human perspective, you have to just let go of that crap, right? And like allow yourself to be guided versus just, no, 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 I want to stay here. I want to stay here. We're not supposed to stay in that, right? Like, we can feel it, but we have to move on. And so I want to ask you, obviously growing up an atheist, right? What is spirituality to you? Because I'm the opposite, right? I grew up in a church. I was raised a Christian. I still consider myself a Christian now, but I look at everything so differently. I feel like it's just a different view. How do you go from atheist to literally, I believe you said, God multiple times, faith multiple times, spirit? Like, so how do you make that shift? Like, what was your aha moment? And then describe spirituality, because I think so many people always describe it differently.
Yeah, I dipped my toe in. I, again, just sort of observed it more than I engrossed myself in it. I studied different texts. I found the commonalities between all of the religions. And really, it's just a way to make meaning of your life and to explain the unexplainable. And for me, when I think of spirituality, what it really means is that there's a bigger energy. There's an energy that has a better blueprint than me. And when I'm at my best, when I am like tuned in, aligned with myself, like acting in the way that I feel more joyful and more just light and free, that I'm closer to the universe, that I'm closer to God, to source, to whatever you want to call it. And I think that energy is love. And I think the closer we can get to love in our lives, that's where we shine. That's where we're really channeling. That's where we're most intuitive. And that's where we're our happiest. So finding love, finding joy, stepping away from fear, those kind of things. Like, for me, that's spirituality. And also trusting that I don't have to do it all myself. I think that, like, I'm a little bit of a control freak. You've met me. But I'm a little bit of a control freak. So trusting that the universe truly has my back, or trusting that God is on my side, or whatever the, thing is, was always something that was really, really challenging for me. And do you have time for a quick story?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I wrote about this in my upcoming book, but I'm going to tell you the exact moment that I stopped questioning things. Okay. So I finished my first book in Vermont, and I decided on the way home I was going to go hike the Adirondacks by myself. Not a good idea. You should not hike the
Yeah,
Adirondacks by
that's not
yourself.
safe.
Don't do that. Don't take advice from me about hiking. But I'm hiking. It is the middle of May. It's black fly season, and nobody is out. Not one person is out. It's just me. I'm hiking for about 4 or 5 miles. I have seen nobody. I have heard nobody. I am on a path. And the night before, I was like Instagramming the spot because I wanted to see pictures of the view or whatever. And there was an Instagram story that popped up that just had bear all over the mountain that I was going to hike on. So I know I'm not even alone. I know I'm with bear. So I'm in this process of hiking, and it had rained really, really hard the night before. So as I'm like climbing up this mountain, I start to lose the trail markers. And I realized that what I've been following is not the trail. So I'm so far off this damn trail, and I start to backtrack, but end up somewhere else, and I cannot find my way out. And so I am literally sobbing on the side of a mountain alone in
Yeah.
the Adirondacks, freaking the fuck out. And I look up and I said, now is the time for me to believe in you. And I swear, not 10 seconds passes, and I hear these voices of these elderly women. And it's enough for me to follow their voice out back to the trail. And I run into them and they're like, where are you heading? And I'm like, well, I'm trying to find the, Indian Head Trail, but I don't know where I am. They're like, oh, we're hiking up there too, if you don't mind us going a little slower, because they're like 85. They're like
Yeah.
grandmothers hiking this massive mountain. And it was truly the most magical conversation of my life. It was eye-opening in so many ways that I needed in my life at that time. And that was the moment where I was like, okay. You have a point. This is something that I can really lean back in. And it's funny because I used to use that in desperate times. Like I would only use prayer and asking for help in desperate times, but I really incorporate that into every area of my life. I invite the universe in to help me speak in this podcast. Help me know what people need to know. Help me share what people need to know. And that has changed everything for me.
No, I love that. And it's so, I think, people who are on a spiritual journey or don't question the higher self, they all have that moment, right? I had my moment when I was 16. I won't share it just from a time standpoint, but where I went, okay, I'll never question again. Right. Yeah. I had a moment of question, and then craziness happened. I'll say it really quick. So I was going through like a really rough patch in my life. I had to change schools. My dad had just gone to jail. I had to move in with my aunt and uncle. And so like literally like as a 16-year-old, life fell apart, right? Like I was like, my whole life up to this point doesn't matter. And so I remember one night sitting in my room at my aunt and uncle's house, and I was like crying, and I in my head said, if you're real, you better prove it, right? And so I went to school the next day, didn't even really think about what I said or that whatever. I went to school, came home, walked into the kitchen, and for the first time ever, on the kitchen counter, the Bible was opened. And on top of that was like a scripture book. And they were both talking about stories of you can't see me, but I'm here. Yeah. And I was like, all right, won't ever question again. Got it. Like, it was one of those moments for me where I was like, so even through like moments of like when I really started like leaving religion, right, and like questioning religion and all that stuff, it was never a question of God. It was so much more. So I had to share that really quick because I think everybody kind of has that. If you allow yourself to have it and be open to it, you have it. And so
it gave me goosebumps.
I love it. That's great. No, it was a crazy moment. It gave me goosebumps. Like I remember like my legs got shaky. I was like, this is not real. It was crazy. So I want to talk to you about manifestation, because this is something that you talk about very, very often. You talk about it in your new book, all those things, right? So a lot of people hear the word manifestation, and not necessarily my audience, but a lot of people hear the word manifestation and they go, what a bunch of crock, right? Oh, I thought about it and it happened and all that stuff. So I want you to break it down into human terms, because I think you do that really, really well, of what is manifestation and how can we use it in our life to create abundance?
Manifestation in the most simple sense is the idea that thoughts become things. However, I hate that because it diminishes what it really is, right? Our brains are supercomputers. So when we think about something, it looks for proof. And that's how our perception works, is if we took on every bit of stimuli that's happening at all times around us, we would never get anything done. So it has to start separating what's important. And it separates what's important by the beliefs that we have. And the beliefs we have are just formed by the thoughts that we keep thinking. So if we know that we've thought something over and over again, and it's formed a belief, and now our belief is acting as a filter to the world, then what our brain is required to do is to look for proof. So when you begin to get into manifestation at the very base level, it's neuroscience. It's the idea that we have filters, and if we want to see better things in our world, that we have to start inputting better thoughts. There's another component to that, however, is that you match the frequency of what you're around. Your thoughts have frequency. When I was in that deep, deep depression, I hated everything. Everything sucked all the time. And guess what? More things kept sucking. More things, like issues with my car, issues with that. And So when we start to climb I think of it as a 10-story building. When you're in the basement, you've got the basement things. You've got the trash. There's probably some rats down there. There's like broken furniture that nobody really even remembers is there. And every better feeling thought that you can produce, that you can find, that you can grasp, you move up the elevator. You find new things. And when you're at the penthouse, it's the good stuff. And it's sort of the idea that when we have a momentum of a bad day, it just keeps getting worse. And if we have the momentum of a good day, it just keeps getting better. We're both having the world respond to our thoughts and to our energy. And if you can't believe in the energy part, then you can simply believe in the science of thoughts and how important that is. And there's a million studies to prove and demonstrate that those are powerful. But when you combine them, and I always say it's like baking a cake. Today, your manifestation of today is just a reflection of your past thoughts, feelings, and actions, which means that right now, if you don't like where you're at, you get to bake a new cake. And it starts with today, and it starts with remembering who the hell you are. And it starts with deciding that you're powerful. And it starts with finding a new, better thought. I think where people get real jacked up with manifestation is they like to do the game of as big as it can go, right? Which means that if I'm broke, if I'm me 10 years ago and I'm on WIC checks and trying to keep my lights on and I'm trying to manifest winning the lottery, my brain is going to literally boot that. It is going to say, yeah, right. Like you're really going to win the lottery. So finding a better thought doesn't come with finding an extreme thought. It just comes with being willing and open to believe that something a little bit better can happen to you. When you start to do that, doors will open. Somebody asked me yesterday if I believed in like manifestation in terms of it being like a physical thing, like my thoughts bring this item.
Yeah.
I think that your thoughts help you see opportunities, pathways, and doorways to get where you want to go. And I think when you have the energy that matches it, it's even easier. Do I think that some people in shitty energy have still produced some really incredible lives? Yes.
Yeah.
But when you can at least get one or the other, finding a little more joy in your day, finding a little more joy in your life, getting your energy to a better spot, that helps. Getting your mind to a better spot, that helps. Combining them both, magic.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, because honestly, when you break it down, everybody thinks they want something. They want money, they want the house, they want the end result. But really what they want is joy and happiness, and they just don't have it in their life. So if you're able to make those shifts to find a little bit more joy, then what you find is, and this is kind of how I kind of like, okay, the idea of manifestation, like if you're able to make the shift and for lack of a better term, act as if, then the money will flow. Then the things that you want in your life will be better, right? Better relationships, better friendships, better everything, better clients. Because you're a joyful person, people want to be around you. That's the shift, right? And I love that. And I think the secret, I love The Secret, but I think The Secret made it like, oh, I thought about it and then I got it. Like how many stories are in there of like, I needed $14,000 and I really started, and all of a sudden I opened my mailbox and there was a check for like, okay, that's an extreme. Yes, it happened for this person, but that's an extreme. And I've had clients that are on that movie. So
Yeah.
I can't overly go into detail, but there's a lot of where you're like, okay, that's a little bizarre.
Yeah.
But I love how you broke that down. I think it's absolutely genius. So I want to talk about your book a little bit. Obviously, Rock Your Comeback is the second iteration, right? The first one was Rock Your Soul.
Yep. Yep. Rock Your Comeback, the Down to Earth Guide to Reclaiming Your Power.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about what is somebody going to get if they get this book. What are they going to get out of it?
I always say I wrote this book to me 10 years ago. So this just is a book to me, what I needed 10 years ago to get out of my black hole moment and back into my power to create something really magical for myself. So Rock Your Comeback really walks you through 5 components of healing. So if you're stuck or you've just lost your job or lost your spouse or you're just in that heavy, dark place, there's something for you. We talk about getting back to the basics and neutralizing that heavy energy to get back on your feet. The second part is the part where you undo. So you look at the things you believe, you look at the things you've been doing, and you ask yourself, am I surrounding myself with the good people? Am I abandoning myself? Am I accepting normal that's not really that normal? And then we can kind of move into the thoughts and perception, which is my favorite. And I think some of the most powerful tools and just science understanding, but in a fun way to help you understand just how powerful who you believe yourself to be, the way you're thinking about the world is. And then we go into the energy and intuition component where you can figure out what you believe in. And I will never, ever tell anybody what to believe in. That's something really near and dear to my heart. So that gives you a chance to play with your intuition, to understand how energy may be impacting you, and to develop some kind of sense of connection with your highest self, your higher power, whatever that is to you. And then we merge all of those things into manifesting. And the one thing I will say, just about manifesting in general, is my most powerful tip that I could give you is you can manifest the money, the cars, whatever. That's not what I recommend though. Manifest who you are in the world. Manifest how you feel about yourself. It will attract all the right things anyway. And it will be more authentic than if you are manifesting something because when you think you get there that you're going to be happy or whatever. So manifest for you first. But yeah, this is a really incredibly powerful book. I really, really believe that. And I wholeheartedly am passionate about it. And I wish I would have had it a decade ago so I could have worked my way out of my bullshit. But yeah, I'm so excited for this launch.
No, I love it. And so obviously it's out today, right? Like the day this episode is dropping, it is officially out, so people can go get it. Where do they go to get it?
They can get it on any platform. So it's on my website, NicholeEaton.com, on Amazon, BarnesandNobles.com, Target, Walmart, all the places. So I'm pretty accessible. And if you need me in your local bookstore, I'm really wanting to do and focus on independent bookstores because that's something I'm really passionate about, is small business and helping fellow small businesses. So reach out to me and I'd love to come sign in your space.
Sweet. So I want to ask you a question that I ask every single person on the show. It's a two-part question. The first part is, what is your definition of success? And the second part is, what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
Success used to be the idea that I was well known and whatever else, had all the money, had all the whatever. And I think now for me, success is actually peace. For me to walk through my day feeling aligned and peaceful and being able to flow freely through my day and to have freedom in my life, that to me is success. And for me, my morning routine is essential for my success. I feel my best when I am doing a little workout, doing a little meditation, and really setting myself up with a manifestation practice that's actually in my book so that I can step into my day feeling all of that before I even approach it.
So what do you do in your morning routine?
I get a good workout in. So I just go with whatever I feel like. So sometimes that's a walk, sometimes that's Pilates, sometimes that's the Peloton, sometimes that's weightlifting. I do a little meditation at 10 minutes. That's all I have in my day. That's all I have. And then I like to sit down and I do a letter to the universe. So I write a letter to the universe every single morning. This is a practice that has worked me out of my depression, that has worked me out of, debt, whatever else. I write a letter to the universe as though the things that I desire are already mine. They're already the case. And I'm just writing a thank you letter for them. So how I want to feel about myself, how I want to feel about my relationship, how I want to feel about my business, the people I'm helping, whatever that looks like. But those are the 3 non-negotiables of my morning, is that I move my body, get connected with a higher power, and get connected with who I really desire to be.
I love it. I love it. So I wrap up every single interview with the same question. Obviously, we already talked about where to get the book, but where do people follow you? Where can they connect with you? What's all that good stuff?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram and TikTok at NicholeEaton.xo. My website is NicholeEaton.com. Right now, I have an online membership that's super exciting called the Comeback Club. So if you read the book and you're like, I want more, I want to hang out, every course I have ever made is in the Comeback Club. And then I do a new one every month. So this is really important to me because as much as I'm growing and having less time for one-on-ones, I wanted to make something that was affordable for me 10 years ago. So it's only $22 a month. We do a live Q&A. We have a new course every month. And I really I pop on every Friday. That's not in the thing, but I just like to over deliver, I guess, because people are really important to me. So that's another space you can connect with me in. So you can find that on NicholeEaton.com as well.
I love it. What's the spiritual number 22 mean, or 222 or whatever? It means something, doesn't it?
My tattoo. It probably does traditionally means something in numerology, but for me, it's my yes number. It's a number that has shown up every time that something is right for me. And it's just like a little reminder of like, hey, Nicole, you're on the right path. So that's my yes.
I love it. So like I said, I wrap up every single interview with the same question. Since the show is called The Growth Now Movement, that question is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
For me, it was recognizing my power. For me, it was stop playing victim to the world. And if I don't like something, doing something about it. That's really important to me. And that's a lot of work that I do with people, is helping them say, hey, I don't love this about my life. I'm not victim to it. And at any given moment, I can take my power back and step back in. So yeah, for me, it was that process of reminding myself who the fuck I am, what I get to have, what I get to do, and really working on believing in myself.
I love it. Nicole, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with my audience. Guys, go get the book, but this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.